Back at it again, guys. It's Mr. Peters. In my video today, one of my favorite topics, we're talking about rational exponents. And before you guys shut down on me, just remember that rational exponents are just exponents that are fractions. And this is going to be a very easy breakdown. So, guys, first thing we have to understand is just a difference between the rational form, right? And the radical form. And just understand, guys, we have to understand that when we have x to the a over b, a is just our exponent, right? In the sense of the power that we're going to raise the number to, and b is the root. So we have to remember that when we're going from rational form to radical form or vice versa. Now, a very important rule, the most important rule we're going to start off with, anything to the 1/2 power, it's just asking you for the square root. Okay, so if I said to rewrite 9 to the 1/2 power as an integer, right? We would have the square root of 9. Because understand, guys, even though it's not written, we should know that there is a 2. So whenever you don't see a number inside that root, that index, you have to assume it's 2, and if we don't see anything for the power, we are going to assume that it is 1. So, with that being said, anything to the 1/2 power is just its square root. So 9 to the 1/2 power, we're asking for the square root of 9. Our answer would be 3. And if we did the same thing with 25 to the 1/2 power, they're asking us for the square root of 25. And like I said, that will just be 5. Now, let's kick it up a notch, right? Because we know they're not just going to ask us to only evaluate to the 1/2 power. So, in my next problem now, let's say we have this problem. They gave us 125 to the 2/3 power. How are we actually going to simplify this and try to write it as an integer, a whole number? So first we're going to switch it over to radical form. So we're going to have our square root symbol. We know the base is 125. Now we're going to fill in the power and the root. So what I'm going to do in this problem is, and there's two ways to do it. I like to figure out the root, then take it to the power. And this is what I mean. So it's asking us for the cube root of 125. So they're saying, hey, what number that when you multiply it by itself 3 times will give us 125? And that answer is going to be 5, right? Because 5 times 5 is 25. And then we multiply by 5 again, we're going to get 125. So I'm still gonna keep my parentheses, but we found a cube root. So that the radical is gone. But what we cannot forget is this exponent. So now I bring it down and it's telling me, hey, what is 5 squared? So our final answer for this problem would be 25. All right. And we're going to look at another example so that you guys can get a little bit more familiar with what I'm talking about when it comes to breaking this down. So let's switch over to blue now. And in our next problem, they're asking us to evaluate 8 to the 1/3 power. So remember now, I told you guys, hey, anything to the 1/2 is its square root. So now in this problem, they're not asking us for a square root, but they're asking us for a cube root, right? So we know that all we have to do is find the cube root of 8. Because you guys know that anything to the to the first power, it's just itself, right? Exactly. So when we break this down now, guys, we know that the cube root of 8 is 2, right? Because we know that 2 times 2 times 2, that will give us 8. So now we've got the cube root of it. And when we go back to look at our exponent, right, we bring it down. Just remember that 2 to the first power is just 2, right? And then before we wrap it up, guys, I really want to look at one more problem because in this problem, I'm going to try to solve it more than one way because we can do that. Okay? So let's look at this last problem, and in this last problem, we're going to evaluate 8 to the 2/3 power. And I'm going to do this in two different ways so that I could show you guys that, hey, there's more than one way to do it. And two, pick the way that makes more sense to you. So we're going to rewrite this in radical form, right? We know our base is 8, the root is 3, and we're talking about a power of 2. So we already know the cube root of 8, that is going to be 2, right? We bring down our exponent, and now we're evaluating 2 to the second power. So after we found the cube root of 8, right, which is 2, now they tell us to square that answer. So our final answer would be 4. But now what I want to do, I just want to scroll over a little bit and let's see if we could solve this problem a different way. And I'm going to switch to green as a color. So let's rewrite this real quick. So we have the same exact thing, the cube root of 8 squared, right? So let's do this, right? What if we squared 8? So if we square 8, right, we square first, we're going to have the cube root of 64. So we worked backwards this time. So instead of taking the root, the index, I said, no, 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 no. We're going to go and take the power and see if we could solve it that way. So after squaring 8, we're going to get the cube root of 64. And now there is a cube root of 64. It's going to be 4, right? So just remember, guys, when we're talking about rational exponents, they are just exponents with fractions, and there's more than one way to solve. You could take that radical to the power first, then take its root, or you could do it the other way, find the root of that radical, and then take it to the power. Hopefully, you guys found this video helpful. We're going to do a second part of this video where we look at more challenging problems later on in the week. So make sure you catch us for that video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. This is Algebra 1 with Mr. Peters.